We are following a major story out of the Philippines, a major storm, a super typhoon barreling across the central islands. The storm is, well, it's a beast, and it is putting a lot of people in danger.
Most likely, Haiyan is the strongest tropical system based on the winds to ever make a landfall anywhere in the world in recorded history.
When we heard about Typhoon Haiyan coming towards the central Philippines, we started watching the satellite tracking the storm coming towards us, and we realized this could be a very devastating storm, so we started preparing and planning in case we needed to help, realizing that we would probably be very involved in this relief work. The storm wasn't coming to our areas, so we weren't worried about that, but we were ready to go to the areas and help as needed. So the storm came through, I think it was on a Friday, and Sabbath morning we immediately, as soon as we felt it was clear enough, we flew
to Iloilo, where we have some friends and church members that we were going to pick up and kind of do some survey flights over the area.
We didn't realize how bad the areas would be, but the people with us who were locals from this area, the Panay Island, they could see these places that they were familiar with, and they would say, you know, that underwater area is supposed to be a city, you know, and they would just shaking their heads and amazed at what they saw.
The roads were all completely closed off because of the trees and power lines and everything were laying across the roads. And so we took some supplies up to Rojas, which was another airport about a half-hour flight from Iloilo. It had been hit pretty hard as well. The control tower there actually had the roof completely torn off it. I didn't even notice when I came in there until after I landed, but the controllers were just standing out there kind of on an open platform because they didn't have a roof anymore. It really did a lot of damage.
And so they took videos and pictures and compiled them immediately with detailed places and dates of what we saw, and we gave that information out quickly to ADRA and put it on YouTube and various places so that people could have that information. In fact, we realized that most of the world and the media had no idea what was going on in this area, the Panay Island. They knew that it had been hit, but almost all the attention was in another area in Tacloban, which had been majorly devastated. But the Panay Island region had also been just huge areas of devastation, and almost just as bad as Tacloban, just not so concentrated like in that city. So we focused our attention in that area. By the next day, Sunday, we called our other mission pilot to bring the other plane up and start helping us so we could have 2 airplanes to work, and we started taking supplies of food and water and things like that to this one city that was cut off. All the roads were blocked and they couldn't get any food in there. So they made many flights back and forth, and we also helped the Department of Social Welfare bringing supplies to these areas. They had all the supplies ready to go, just packs and packs of these things, but they had no way to get the supplies to the areas. So we were able to help with that. And we just took one day at a time, one day and then 1 week and then 1 month, just planning as we could, as best we could, of what to do to help. We were able to do some drops of nails to some areas, even into Tacloban, where they were just begging for nails, and tarps into other areas so they could have some shelter. And then wherever we could land an airplane, we would bring supplies that way as well. We were limited with just airplanes, not being able to land in many other areas that needed help. So we were wishing for helicopters at that time, but we were thankful for the airplanes that God had provided.
started doing some flying of relief goods.
The local churches, some of them already set up with community outreach services and volunteers already doing these kinds of things regularly. They were great to work with because we could immediately start working with them to do various projects. Even to this day, they're still doing, boat projects for the fishermen that have no more boats, and so they can have livelihood, to have food and be able to sell the fish for money and be able to build their houses again, things like that, and tarps and tents, projects like that. So we continue also to support the work that way by the donations that others will send to us. We also use for these different projects.
We had gotten quite a bit of support that was coming in that was specified for that. I think we channeled about $20,000 into the different parts of the relief work, wherever it was needed most at the time. Sometimes food, sometimes shelter, sometimes helping them rebuild their livelihood, like helping them with materials for building little boats or roofing materials and different things like that.
And it was really great to work. We worked with local people as well as foreigners. Everyone had a part. We saw how God really used people from the States, people from Australia. Actually, of course, there were teams coming from all over the world, but we were blessed to be able to work with many of them. And God used each different kinds of people with different skills to be able to help with the relief work. We were also able to help with some medical outreach, some mobile clinics. As Dwayne and Sean were flying to different areas, I started helping to plan these mobile clinics in different areas, devastated areas. And so we would invite various doctors to volunteer and help for a few days at one project, and we'd get some more for another medical mission or mobile clinic in another area. We got church members and various different volunteers to help. We had one patient that was so affected emotionally by the storm that she couldn't hardly even walk or talk or function anymore. The medicines were provided by donors, even other organizations that would come and do relief work, and then when they left they would leave their medicines for us so we could continue to do these mobile clinics. And after the pharmacy they would be seen by some trained church members or volunteers or missionaries, where we would talk with them one-on-one or by family and ask them how their situation was, what happened to them during the storm, and we would let them talk and find out what their needs were. And they really appreciated us, even though we weren't promising anything. We would listen to what their needs were and remind them that God was still there. We would pray with them, and they almost always would start to tear up. They were really thankful. Oftentimes I would stop and realize what was going on and say, wow, I haven't slept on a mattress for 3 weeks or something like that. Haven't eaten a usual meal that I'm used to for a long time. And I would realize that I didn't even care. I wasn't worried. I was so much enjoying the experience of helping others that it didn't bother me. One of our last medical missions we were doing, and we were expecting to sleep on the floor in the church, and we were going to again be eating very simple foods. And we got to the place and we heard that there was a church member that was inviting us, all the volunteers, to come and stay in her house. She just lived right near the church. Her house hadn't been affected by the storm, and so we came to her house, not knowing what to expect. And here she had just these huge beds, like room after room of these double beds with big mattresses and fans. She had a generator so that we had electricity, and we thought we were going to be miserable, sleeping on the floor, no fans, very hot. And here we are, God provided, and I think that was the day that it was Thanksgiving Day, so we were very much praising God for that. And then just out of the blue, you know, here we are out in the middle of nowhere, and she starts bringing out these veggie foods from canned vegetarian foods from Loma Linda, and you know, these foods that we haven't seen for years, you know, and we were just amazed. You know, she had some relatives that lived in the States. They had sent her these boxes of foods, and here she was sharing these big franks and chili beans, and I mean, the most for me, you know, some of my favorite foods. How in the world, you know, would this happen in the middle of nowhere? God provided a bed, a fan, even air conditioning for, I think we had some air conditioning for part of the night, I can't remember. Anyway, and then delicious foods, and we just were praising God for how He provided for us.
We were working with the Riverside SDA Church and HCBN, which is kind of a ministry of that church. And they have another little ministry that involves all the church members in that area. They call it something, a motorized rescue group. They were very active. They were the ones on the ground that were going out and assessing the needs in the areas and, you know, getting us GPS coordinates for airdrops and stuff like that. So we spent about a month down there before we finally came back up north here, but even now, about 6 months later, there's a lot of need in those areas.
Carry your candle, run to the darkness, seek out the helpless, confused and torn.